All right, so I'm going to hit go live now on YouTube. That needs just a moment to spool up. And that looks good. The meeting is yours now, Madam Chair. Let me know if you need anything.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Okay, it is 7:32 on Thursday, May 20th. I'm calling the regular meeting of the Clawson Zoning Board of Appeals to order. Nick, excuse me, could we do the Pledge of Allegiance first? Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Nick, are you calling roll today?
Yes, I am.
Okay, could you call the roll, please?
Of course. Mr. Fitzer?
Here from Clawson, Michigan.
Mr. Irwin?
I'm here in Clawson, Michigan.
Mr. Sanaki?
Here, Clawson, Michigan.
Miss Cindy Smith?
Here from Clawson, Michigan.
And Miss Diane?
Here from Clawson.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we do have a full board today. You've been given the packet, and I'd like for you to review the regular meeting minutes from our last meeting, which is January 21st of 2021. And if there are no revisions to that, I entertain a motion to approve those.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the minutes for the meeting of the Clawson Zoning Board of Appeals from January 21st, 2021, as published.
Okay, thank you, Ed. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
This is Cindy. I will second.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. I have a motion and a second. Nick, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Irwin?
Yes.
Mr. Sanaki?
Yes.
Miss Cindy Smith?
Yes.
Miss Diane Smith?
Yes.
And Mr. Fitzer?
Yes.
Okay. Motion carried. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is a public hearing on the request for a variance at 1402 West 14 Mile, which are the CVS signs. I'm going to turn it over to Jill from Giffords Webster to give us a presentation.
Thank you. We have one item on our agenda today that's the one petition for the CVS signs. These are, this is an existing business at 1402 West 14 Mile Road. They have several variances, so I'm going to try to summarize the whole thing up front, and then we can go through each facade, and then I'll wrap it up again at the end. So just trying to keep us all together. So we have two monument signs, one on 14 Mile Road and one on Crooks Road. These are existing monument signs. They exceed the height by 3 inches. They need an area variances as well. These are non-conforming signs. An additional blade sign, which is a sign that's not a permitted sign type. And then 2 variances with respect to the wall signs, one in terms of the overall square footage, and the second for the number of signs. So if we look here, the applicant's packet included a key map, and the key map has the identified signs on it, 1 through 12. And we can see that on the, oops, let's see here. Okay, so we have all 12 sign locations here, and then I highlighted the wall signs and which ones those are. So we have signs 1, 2, and 3 on the south facade, 8, 9, and 10 on the west, 5, 6, and 7 on the drive-through. So there's currently 8 existing signs, wall signs, and they're proposing 6. But as you can see, the proposed area exceeds that which they already have currently. So if we start zooming in on the facades, we have signs 1, 2, and 3, which are on the West 14 Mile Road sign side. So in the upper left here, you can see what the existing signs look like now, signs 1, 2, and 3. Those are proposed to change with a larger wall sign as number 1, and then some additional signs here. So when we go to the facade summary, again, each business is permitted 1 wall sign and 75 square feet per building. On this facade, there are 3, currently 126.61 square feet. The proposal is to keep the same 3 signs or signs in the same 3 locations, but increase the panel sizes to 174.96 square feet. So that's on the 14 mile side. There is a little, the 4 points to this little tiny blade sign that is here. There's a screenshot from Google Street View that shows that up here. It does face the 14 mile facade. It is proposed to be refaced. Blade signs, as I said, aren't a permitted sign type. The existing blade sign is about 5 square feet. It's a non-conforming sign. The proposal is to keep it about the same size in the same location. There are currently depicted on this graphic 3 signs, 5, 6, and 7 at the drive-through. We switch to their page. They show the existing signs as the drive-through pharmacy signs and then an exit sign, but we noted that that one we don't count. They're proposing to remove one of those and make one a little bit larger sign in its place. So in this case, again, reminding us that we have 1 sign that's permitted. In this area, we have 2 wall signs, non-conforming at about 16 square feet in area. The proposal is 1 wall sign in this location at 17.65. And I kind of went back and forth on whether I should tell you that the existing and permitted signs by facade or by total, but I will just tell you that each facade in the summary is treated separately. So when I say that there's proposed 1 wall sign, in this case, I mean 1 wall sign on this facade, but I'll summarize them again so that you see how many there are altogether. I hope that's not too confusing. On the Crooks Road side, there are 3 wall signs, 8, 9, and 10. And those are shown up here in the upper left, 8, 9, and 10. The proposal is to, on this shorter facade portion, just replace those 2 with 1 and then replace this sign as well. So those would be, again, a total of 1 sign altogether in a maximum area of 75 square feet. The existing is 3 wall signs at about 118.19 square feet, and the proposal is 2 wall signs on this facade at 158.8 square feet. I'll return back to this. Sorry, I should have put another one of these in. This chart again. They want to just, we're just talking about the wall signs right now. So again, the existing area is this. So the overall total is 260.8 square feet with 8 signs. So that's what they currently have now. With the proposed panel replacements in similar locations, they would reduce the number of wall signs from 8 to 6, but increase the area from 260 to 323 square feet. So in one sense, they're reducing a nonconformity of the number of signs, but they're increasing that with the square footage. So now that we know that, we're going to switch gears to the monument signs. Oops, it's too fast. So number 12 is the Crooks Road monument sign. And in this location, we see the existing sign panel here with an electronic message panel. They're proposing to remove that electronic message panel and make a larger CVS sign panel here. So again, this is the first time we're talking about monument signs. The site is allowed one monument sign at 8 feet high and a maximum area of 32 square feet. The existing monument sign is 8 feet 3 inches high. It's an existing non-conforming sign at 68.67 square feet. And the proposal is to do the same with just replacing this top portion with their sign. Similarly, site sign number 11 on West 14 Mile. Here is the existing sign with the CVS sign panel at the top. Proposal is to replace that. We have this similar situation there with the monument sign and replacing the panel. It's an existing non-conforming sign. So in summary, we have the two monument signs that are existing non-conforming that require, when we take off the panels and replace them, we don't permit that unless there's a variance granted. So that would be for the height variance and the area variances. A variance to permit the blade sign, which is not a permitted sign, and the variance for the wall signs, one for the area to exceed the overall wall sign area, and then also the number. And in our letter, we had a variance of 7 signs from the permitted 1 sign, but that should have been a variance of 5 signs because there are 6 signs total. Oops. So I can leave it on this one, or I can go back to maybe the key map if that's helpful, and answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Jill. Any questions for our planner?
This is Ed Sinaki. Did you do any research to figure out when the sign ordinance was revised? Because there are multiple differences from our ordinance on this existing redevelopment. So did we come in afterwards and strategize to change the number of signs?
I think you're asking me 2 questions. I think that the sign ordinance, it looks like the last update to the sign ordinance was in 2012. So certainly these signs have been there before that. I think your second question was, are we going to be updating the sign ordinance to accommodate maybe some of these areas in which we've got the non-conforming issue? And we will be, but we've had other priority items. Sign ordinance is going to be something that's rather large. So we've talked about pushing that until probably early fall. So we haven't gotten to that yet. If I think, did I answer your questions?
I guess I'd like to rephrase it, and I didn't know we were going to go for sign ordinance, but that's good. This property execution did not require variances when it was constructed. Do we have an indication of that? In other words, at the time that this area was developed and CVS puts up their number of signs, and the monument signs on the 14 Mile and Crooks Road were executed, they were all in compliance. Do we know that?
We don't know that.
Okay, and is the applicant here to speak to this today?
Oh, yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay, so I'll wait until you go through your explanation. So I don't have any other questions at this time. Thank you.
Jill, do you know when this property was originally developed?
I do not.
Okay, but it was before the 2012 sign ordinance.
I believe so.
Okay, and you're not aware of whether they were granted any variances at that point?
No, I don't know that.
Okay. All right. Board have any other questions for the planner before we ask the applicant to speak?
This is Sam Fitzer, and I have a question regarding the monument signs. Is that permitted allowable area? Is that for a single panel, or is that for the entire monument sign? Because there's a number of businesses that are also on this monument sign.
Right, that's for the maximum of 70 or of 32 square feet is for the whole sign area.
Okay. And is the applicant or the owner of this piece of property also the same owner of the entire sign, the entire monument?
That I don't know.
These monument signs would have been the property of AF Jonah, who owns the property, because it's a multi-tenant sign. It's not just CVS's sign there, just a shared tenant on a multi-tenant sign. So that's the property owner's monument signs they would put in when they did the development.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, are there any other questions before we turn it over to the applicant? Okay, all right, Mr. Fields, you're here representing the applicant?
Yeah, Jim Fields, Allied Signs, with Clinton Township. And we're the branding partner with CVS, pretty much through about 2/3 of the state of Michigan. And what CVS has been doing nationally is updating their brand. You can see changes in the logos to the font style. The branding of the Minute Clinics is now a health hub. So they've really changed colors, the positioning of the heart, and the general identification corporately. So when they're going into these older stores and they're bringing the branding up to par, they're typically, like you see on, as Jill's pointed out, where they have 3 signs on an elevation, they're coming back with the 3 signs showing the current changes in the current branding, and removing the old. So they're combined with the colors and the visual layouts and just pretty much a standard across the country. In this instance, with like the long front elevation where Jill pointed out sign 1, 2, and 3, where they're going with the CVS replacement, Minute Clinic replacement, and the health hub replacement, they base on what's existing on their facades, and they're trying to match up their standard corporate cookie cutter size style of sign of their branding that they're replacing on these buildings. So where there's the existing CVS pharmacy set at the 80.2 square feet, on this standard size of facade with that background, it typically gets the 133 square foot pharmacy set as we see. The existing Minute Clinic is kind of changed and combined with the health club to where we're replacing the 27.24 existing square foot sign with their 26.10 square foot standard sign. The same thing with the far right on that elevation, there's a drive-through pharmacy set, which they removed that branding. That sign was at 19.17 square feet. And the new health hub for that corner of these buildings is a 15.8 square feet. So the overages on this elevation are fairly well limited to just the size of the CVS pharmacy set, which is number 1. If you go to the second elevation that Jill pointed out, where we also have the shorter end of it, you have the CVS pharmacy, the existing photo, and then the existing drive-through pharmacy set. Again, the 2 small signs, the 7.24 and the 30.75 square foot, Those are going to go away and be replaced with a 15.8 square foot health hub. So that's a net drop in 15 square compared to existing. And then again, to match the other facade side, the CVS pharmacy, they match those pairs. So again, they've come back with the 133, which is the standard footprint that they pretty much corporately do on their stores. The other signs that Jill's pointed out, with the blade sign, it's an existing sign. That's just a reface. So it's using the existing structure. It's just bringing it up to the current branding. The same with the monument signs. The monument signs, as I'd said, those are tenant signs. So they're owned by the property owner. That's not actually a CVS owned sign. That's the property owner supplied for the multi-tenant area development. The CVS portions are just being refaced to what's allotted square foot wise to the existing signs. So the square footage is limited to the CVS size, which the single face without the message center, it's just a face replacement. The face replacement should be at 23.2 square feet, which is what they're allotted for in the existing sign. It's just a rebranding of the old panel, which is outdated. And then on the second monument sign, they're going to eliminate the EMC, which is part of the square footage that they already have, and replace it with just a static face. Again, it's basically a reface of that. And again, we're at 38.06, which is the same square footage that's already in this sign. The lower tenants, you have 3 other tenants that are shared in that sign. Again, I believe it's an AF Jonah property. And so that would have been on the property owner. So when they're going into these, they're assuming, and I'm running on the assumptions that the signs were all permitted, electrically sign permitted, and if there were variances that would have been in place, that they would have been taken care of. So again, it's a reface reimage. As far as the total square footage that we're looking at, the drive-through pharmacy side, where they have the 3 signs on the canopy, again, they're getting rid of one sign and they're just focusing on the one entry to avoid the confusion at the drive-through, because they found over their traffic studies to where the branding needed to focus on one side, void the other side. So again, there's a minor change in the square footage going down. It's going to one sign rather than the 3. The other branding on the door is also just a reface of an existing sign. So with the combinations of the health hub offering the Minute Clinic and the focusing on the on-the-spot medical services, this is their typical branding package.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fields. Does the board have any questions for the applicant?
This is Ed Sanaki again.
Hi, Ed.
Is there any reason that you didn't stay with the square footage that was allocated previously and not come in with bigger corporate logos? I've never seen in my time frame working with signs that any business owner came in and said, "Hey, I've got too much signage. I'm going to reduce it."
Yeah, right.
So,
No.
It was since before 2012. So you can say for at least 10 years, the size of the signage was adequate.
Right. Well, the big difference in calculating the square foot of the new CVS layout, the old CVS layout is capital CVS / and then pharmacy. So when you really draw a box around that, where you're including the indents of the Y and the raised letters. So the highest point is your
Can
V.
I interrupt you for 1 second? And
Sure.
I think Jill is, or somebody's
Sure.
doing this. Yeah, can we go to the sign that you're talking about? Because
That's-
I don't remember, and I don't think anybody else on this,
There you go.
scenario
So
could.
if you zoom into the left hand side, of that, the existing signs. Yep, zoom right in on that, and you'll see you can see the difference in the branding. That this automatically changes about 15% of square footage when you box that in. The old logo is just a CVS with the hash and pharmacy. The new logo, they incorporate the heart with the CVS, which is all capitals, and then you have pharmacy. But when you box the entire area around that, you have a net of about 15% difference just by the change in the Ceres, because now you're carrying the upper CV and S. Now, I understand the point on the square footage. Again, these are people at the designers at CVS corporately. When they see the footprints of these buildings, they automatically plug in a size based on the dead space in the area. They do have options on these to go down in square foot. And I do see an option that corporately could be ordered to fit and still meet the original square foot standard. So where you see the existing 80.2 square foot CVS pharmacy sign in that old picture, there is an available, I have it here, let's see. There is an available 74.43 square foot corporate approved branded logo that could go into that place. So really on both facades, there is an option to do it at 74.43 square feet, which is under what's already existing. And then pretty much all the other signs are either net under what's existing or within a foot of being over. So again, the total amount of signs goes down. The net on if we bring the main CVS pharmacies in at that 74.43 square foot, that falls under 5 square foot of what's already apportioned to that sign type on each one of those facades. Then each one of the facades will be under what they already have in square foot. Does that help at all? I know it's kind of, I'm throwing a lot of numbers. I was just going through and I pounded through the brand book to find square foot allowances that would possibly work in this scenario, knowing that that would probably be the way to suggest this after I look into it.
So I can't do those numbers that quick in my head. So if we were to reduce the CVS pharmacies on both sides, on the 14-mile side and the Crook side, would
Right.
then, and Jill, maybe this is a question for you, would that then bring us under, if they already have existing signage of 260.8 square feet, would that bring us at that number or below?
If they reduce the size of the CVS farm, the main wall sign?
On
Yes.
both sides, 14 and Crooks.
Well, this shows the summary on the 14-mile frontage.
So, hey, Jill, the
Yes.
number difference is between 133.06 is what was proposed. If we replace that 133.06 with the 74.43 square foot version, which is under the 80.2 that's already up there, you're going to really drop about 61 square foot per elevation off that total. So you're going to have a net loss of 120 square feet off that total, which would bring you under the capacity of what's already out there.
You would need to bring the 133.06. If the main sign was 84.7 square feet, and
It's
the
80.
other, number one was reduced from 133 to 84.7, and 2 and 3 stayed the same, you would be at the total of 126.61.
Okay, so, but the main sign would be a 74.43. And then the secondary sign would be 26.10 and then the 19.17. So that would put us at the 1019, 910, 119.8. So
And
under
then-
120 square foot.
Yes,
So we'd be under what was already there.
correct.
And the same would be on the other elevation as well. So really square foot wise, that would bring them more into compliance with what they already have. And then really the other stuff would just be refacing the signs that were already in place.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
The only other question that I would have is, does it look proportional?
It would scale out similar to the sizing that they already have there. The existing sign is it's a 38.5 inch capital C. The 74.43 square foot would be a 33.75. So it's 3/4 of an inch shorter on the capital letter. The next size between that in scale, just so you know, is 100. It's a 101.96 square foot sign. And again, that's drawing the box around the whole sign rather than portioning the capitals off and then the pharmacy off. Again, we're dealing with that 15% difference, but that would go take it up to a 39.5 inch letter, which would be an inch bigger. So we're either 3/4 of an inch shorter or 1 inch taller. But if we do the 1 inch taller, it's going to be 20 square foot larger than what's there. So I think, in the spirit of trying to comply with the square footage that are on there, proportionally, it's going to look about the same as what's there now, and it's going to fall in and still be under that square foot capacity we're trying to hit.
It would appear to me if you could, write that up or text something that what you in a couple of bullet points that we could change this. It would appear then that you are basically refacing, and by the fact that you did something with the drive-through there, you minimized a sign or two. That would seem to be within the spirit of what was there and making it reasonable to our existing ordinances. And then you look at everything in that particular corner development. Most of the properties have large facing fronts and have a considerable amount of wall sign lettering type of a deal. So it's not like this particular building and usage in that whole development is out of proportion with everything else that's in there. It kind of makes it in proportion if we keep it close to what it was before.
Well, in that instance, it would really look almost to a typical passerby. It's going to look more of a refresh with a combined reimage without changing any of the overall blank sizes of what you would vision on the walls. So no, I tend to agree with you, and really you could call and specify all that out if the board pleases on that, and then we would correct all that and make sure that it would follow any motion the board would grant, for sure.
If I'm following procedure, you have to go back to the planning commission for sign approval, or does this go to administration then for sign approval?
It's administrative sign approval.
This is Cindy. So if these proposed changes are made, is a variance even required?
Yes, they are, because they're existing non-conforming signs.
Yeah,
But if they're just refacing what is existing there, what's changing?
it's not the refacing is being used as a generic term. The monument signs are what you would consider a reface, because you're just dealing with that structure. These wall signs are actually different wall signs. So you're taking the old CVS pharmacy to the new CVS pharmacy. A drive-through pharmacy set of text is going away and being replaced with the new health hub text. So the square footage is staying the same, or in most cases coming in smaller than what's already there, but they are new signs, so that they would require the sign permit and the electrical permit at the same time, because they are, existing primary to the source, but we would be tying in with new secondary and a new product.
And you may recall, we had a similar request at the end of last year from another store that was doing the same thing with refacing their signs. And we talked about the non-conforming signs and how the current sign ordinance is written such that you can fix things that are broken, but you can't replace them to extend their longevity. And so that's why the applicant is here, to get those variances for replacing the non-conforming signs. And if I can, and just to follow up, it appears this property was developed around 2007 or 8. And that was, they were in conformance with the sign ordinance at that time.
Okay, thank you, Jill.
Thanks, Jill.
Are there any other questions from the board for the applicant?
So just for clarification, Jem, thank you for working with us on this and being so forthright with us. Are we saying then that that the only that there would be a change to what CVS proposes tonight, instead of 133 square foot brand marks on the corner of the building, Jim, you're proposing that you switch those to 74 square foot brand marks. That would bring 2 brand marks into compliance with.
Yeah, it would bring them in under the square footage of what's already there. So
Good.
Yeah, that's the closest step in the corporate brand package. So corporately, they have their entire breakdown for this layout, and it has to meet certain proportional standards at heights. So I can go down the graph, and to me, it's just, fit this building and to fit the code and what we're trying to do, and to satisfy what's already there, that's the solution. So
Good.
We're going to come in under square footage. It's a corporately approved layout, and their designers are just going to have to, conform. I mean, that's just how it is. I get it.
Yeah, I would be fine with, I think people are going to know that's a CVS, whether it's a 74 square foot brand mark or 133 square foot brand mark. It's got CVS 4 different places on that corner. So if we can get that brand mark at below 75 square feet, I don't see any reason not to do it. So thank you for bringing that to us.
Yeah. Oh no, I thank you.
Are there any other questions for the applicant or for Jill? Jill, I need to open up a public hearing, don't I?
Yes.
Okay, all right. There being no other questions right now, it is 8:10. I'm going to open up a public hearing for this particular item on the agenda. Are there any folks in the public wishing to speak?
Madam Chair, there are no members of the public online at this time.
Okay. They are missing a good time. We did get a letter that came in our packet that I will read from a neighbor. It is dated May 10th. It says, "To whom it may concern, as neighbors of the CVS store located at 1402 West 14 Mile Road, we have serious concerns about the proposed changes to signage. We are owners of a condominium in the Tower Court condominiums located west of Crooks Road. Our view from our outdoor balcony includes Parmentier Street and Crooks Road to the intersection of 14 Mile Road and includes the CVS store. We've reviewed the proposed request from Allied Signs Incorporated. Currently, CVS has a freestanding sign between the sidewalk and CVS parking lot. We can also see the side of the CVS building, which includes attached identification of the store. We cannot justify the assumption that business will be improved by the addition of more signs or larger signs. Sincerely, Roger J. Dingman, Diane L. Dingman. That is the only other thing we've received from the public. So there being nobody else on the meeting, on the call to speak from the public, I'm going to close the public hearing at 8:12.
Can I make a note on the letter? By doing the change on the CVS pharmacy, we've brought in the square footage. We've actually reduced the signage footprint on the building. So, I mean, hopefully that'll help rather than, making it any larger.
Yes, thank you for that, Mr. Fields.
Thanks.
So if the board has no other questions for our planner or Mr. Fields, I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, this is Ed again. Are we really giving variances to the current ordinance? Is that the way that we have to do this?
Yes.
It's not enough to say that we are reducing the number of signs and reducing the effective square footage from a development that was in compliance. So if we got to do all of this, what items here need to be corrected?
I think it's really just this one here. I'm just going to, it would be this. And I will ask Mr. Fields if he would give us the total for those two, for the wall signs again, please.
Let's try to find my fuzzy math. I believe.
I have 119.7 for the 14-mile side, right?
Right, that's right. And let me get back to this other one. My chicken scratch. I can't even read my own writing.
We have
0.51. So we're what, 89.51 on the health hub on the 2 sign side. So yeah, it'd be 89.51 square feet total on that elevation. Because that's one where we're losing that 3rd sign. So we go from that 80.2 down to the 74.43, and then we're dropping that 30.75 square foot sign altogether and going in with a 15.8. So yeah, it's 89.51 square feet.
I believe that this is our new total. So
Yeah, that's pretty.
75.
It's pretty significant.
The variance request is 151. If I go back here. See that, but you can't. Start over.
And we're making her do math on the fly. Pretty good.
I was pretty proud of myself. I found a pencil just in case I had to do this. Once I started looking through the drawings, I was like, I better put my Sharpie away. We're sign guys and Sharpies. I mean, that's just how we are. Duct tape and Sharpies.
All right, so now we can move this even if we wanted to, so that it would be less confusing, but that would be the request.
This is awesome.
Everything else is the same.
Thank you. That's really helpful, Jill.
Yeah, this is great. It really is. So the only other thing in the way the variance request is written out there, on those monument signs, you may want to change the verbiage on that to where you call them what they are is a multi-tenant sign, and that CVS is only changing out their already allotted tenant space on those signs, rather than listening it this way to where you're trying to apply conformity to the entire property owner sign.
That is a good point, and I think that is if the motion maker wants to include that as a finding of fact.
Yeah.
But the sign itself doesn't recognize the size of tenant signs.
Yeah, the existing non-conformal sign.
Right.
Yeah, so where I'm glad I'm not on the board and have to learn the lingo.
Just have that open.
What we're saying is that the structure to which the tenant signs are attached, the structure itself is 3 inches too high. Correct?
Right. I believe that and it may have just been something that happened after it was installed as well. So it is likely not that that was the maximum was probably not 8 feet 3 inches. It was probably that it was 8 feet and it got built a little bit taller than it was supposed to.
It's 5 years older than the sign ordinance.
Madam Chair, I'd like to propose a findings of fact summary that would be used to support the eventual variance request, and separate them to, because I think the findings of fact will allow us to roll through the rest of this without as much confusion.
Okay.
And so my proposed findings of fact for this is that CVS is basically changing to an upgrade in their logos, font, and colors. The existing development was in 2007 and 2008. And at that time, all signage was in compliance to the ordinance in effect at that time. There are existing structure multiple tenant signs for which this proposal is only changing the CVS allocated space. The proposal brings the overall number of signs, overall signage to under the existing square foot signage, and it reduces the number of signs from 8 to 6. And I'd appreciate the rest of the board if they figure that that is correct from what we discussed.
That sounds good, Ed. Does the board have any other findings of fact to add to Mr. Sinaki's list?
This is Cindy. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I may have missed it, but did you include on that monument sign that it was an existing tenant sign
Yes.
that Jill had requested we do initially?
I think so.
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. Then I concur.
Okay.
Does that support then?
I support, yes.
Okay, we have a motion by Ed to list out the findings of fact and a support by Cindy. Nick, can you take the roll, please? This is only to approve the findings of fact.
Mr. Sanaki,
Yes.
Miss Cindy Smith,
Yes.
Miss Diane Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Fitzer,
Yes.
and Mr. Irwin.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The motion carried for the findings of fact. So the board, somebody from the board would like to make a motion on the pending variances.
Madam Chair, this is Ed. I make a motion that we approve the requested variances as modified during the discussion of this in this review meeting. The significant change from the original proposal is going from a 133 square foot brand market sign on 2 facades to a 74 square foot brand market sign in those locations. With that, the variance requested is a 3-inch height variance for the 14-mile road monument sign, but that is not impacted by the CVS change to the their signage area. Same thing for the Crooks Road monument sign. A blade sign, which is not permitted, but this variance is allowing them to reface the current sign in the same approximate square footage. It allows the variance of in square footage for wall signs of 151.86 square feet from the maximum overall permitted 75 square feet to increase the overall wall signage area. But as stated in the findings of fact, this is actually a reduction from what was approved in the 2007-8 timeframe. And for wall signs, a variance of 5 signs from the permitted 1 sign.
Okay, thank you, Ed. I have a motion. Can I have a second?
A second.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. Nick, can you please call the roll?
Madam Chair,
Yep.
I think I should add that the approval through the building associate or the building department has discretion a little bit in this sign. If it doesn't come out to the exact 151 square foot or whatever, that they have discretion based upon our findings of fact and a general reduction in square footage and number of signs.
Okay.
So they don't have to come back if it's not exactly what we talked about in the layout here today.
Okay. Thank you, Ed. Brad, were you the one that seconded that?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any, do you still support the motion?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. I have a motion and support. Nick, can you please call the roll?
Miss Cindy Smith,
Yes.
Miss Diane Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Fitzer,
Yes.
Mr. Irwin,
Yes.
and Mr. Sanaki.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carried.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Fields.
Thank you. This is very well done.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is public discussion. Being that there's nobody here from the public, I don't think there's probably anything to discuss. The next item is other business discussion of the bylaws. Jill, do you want to take us through that?
Yes. So I think this came from maybe our first meeting of the year, where we were doing election of officers. And the question came up about the, I think it was the secretary position that was included in your bylaws. And I'm just trying to navigate over to the packet. And so we realized that you all didn't have necessarily a copy of your bylaws. So we dug those out and made a couple of modifications. So we included as you see in your packet on page 4 of those bylaws, because we had noticed there was a typo as well. This looks like it was copied over from the Planning Commission, the bylaws, to be the ZBA bylaws. And so it's included in there as something that could be amended. Additionally, when we were looking at this, we noted the odd provision that we thought on the last page of that said that the bylaws could not be amended. That's not consistent with anything that would need to be required. So you can, of course, amend your bylaws. It does need to be, I believe, though, the majority of their board. So let's see if we have that.
Mhm.
You're all here.
We have
Okay.
a full board tonight.
Yeah, so you can do that if you would like to. So I don't know if you all had a chance to look through it, if there's anything, if there were any other items you wanted to discuss other than the officers that were included. But you'll see that generally the bylaws are consistent with state law and really provide for how you run your meetings, what your agendas look like, what the composition of the board is, and then makes a little some provisions for and statements to public hearing notices, conflicts of interest, and how minutes are prepared. So that's just an overview of why this was in your packet. I think everybody, well, I'm not sure everybody was at that meeting, but that's why we're here talking about these. And I guess I'll turn it back to you in terms of those officer positions, and or if there's anything else that you wanted to talk about.
So right now, who signs the minutes?
The minutes aren't really officially signed at this point. They're adopted by the board as a whole, but they're not technically signed.
Mm-hmm.
Do we even need a signature person as a secretary?
I don't believe you do. I don't believe it's a requirement of state law. I don't think it hurts to have one, but I don't know that it's not a necessary position.
Okay. All right. Today, are you looking for, it looks like there was only one slight amendment. Is that it? Other than whether we even need this position of a secretary or not?
Right. Yeah, it was just that one small change. Really, it is effectively just a typo. So I'm not even sure that if that's the only change you're going to make, I don't know that you even need to vote on that, because we can just make that change.
Okay.
But if there's anything else, then yes.
Has the board had?
Can the
Oh,
bylaws say that based on the necessity as seen by the current board, a secretary may be appointed to do some official document at the time that it is, and all the times that I've been here, I think we've gotten one or two memos that we either sent to council or to the planning commission for clarification, and it was just done as a subset of our minutes. And in this case, Nick or Jill or somebody would type something up, we'd bring it back and say, yes, that's what we want to send. And we just send it off. It wasn't like from anything official. I don't know, from my experience, what we would ever have a secretary do.
yeah, I agree. I'm not. Yeah,
But if it's in the bylaws, we could say at some point in time, if we determine we needed one, we would have to select one of the other three, not the chairman or the vice chair, to be a secretary and do that activity, and we could do it at the time. But
Right, so the way that they're written now, it says that the officers shall be the chair, the vice chair, and the secretary, although the secretary, it just says that they have the authority to execute documents in the name of the ZBA and perform other such duties as the ZBA may from time to time determine.
So I guess we could always appoint one, you know, hey, I'm the secretary. I don't
Right.
do anything, but that's, you know,
Right.
there's
Well,
there's no badge or hat that comes with it, is there?
I mean, effectively, I think that your findings of fact are secretarial, sort of in nature on behalf of the board. And I don't know if that's the kind of position that you think would be helpful, that someone be designated each year to make that for each case.
Mhm.
Yeah, you could.
I mean, if you win the lottery and move to Hawaii, although if we're still meeting remotely, maybe you can still be on the planning commission. You have two home in Clawson and you have your second home in Hawaii. But you know, you do a really nice job of pulling those together, and that might be something that could be, and frankly, I don't see a lot of our zoning boards of appeals doing that. So I think that might be good practice.
Mhm.
If you're doing that, and then that becomes the expectation of the secretary, and that moving forward, future secretaries would know that that was what was expected, and other people could learn, and you could be, you know, maybe encouraging your successor to be able to think that way.
If you want to, it's
I think I hear a nomination in there, Ed.
if you, yeah, I do it anyhow because I fumble if I don't write it down. So that would be fine. I would accept.
All right, well, thank you, Ed. So we have a nomination on the floor to actually start having a secretary, and Ed Sinaki has accepted the nomination. I can't remember my Robert's Rules of Orders. I think I have to ask for any other nominations.
Are
The
we,
noise is deafening.
sorry, before we do that, are we proposing any change to what the secretary does in the bylaws? I mean, we
Oh.
talked about how, I'll just say that parliamentary procedure and Robert's Rules of Order are all new to me. And I'm on this board as your average citizen, right? So when Ed does what Ed does in these meetings, I'm really glad for it. But I think I've got a lot to learn. And so I like what you said about if we have a secretary position and someone fills it, then that's incentive for people to learn how to do things. And they could learn from a past secretary, for example. So you brought up findings of fact as a specific example. I was glancing through the bylaws because I thought when I read them today, I saw something about findings of fact in the bylaws. Does that ring a bell for anyone? I couldn't find it right now. But I thought I read it in here somewhere.
That is on page 6.
Okay.
Section 2, the decisions made by the ZBA shall be substantiated with specific findings of fact.
Okay.
Now that is, no, when I said before that many of the ZBAs don't do that, they tend to include it in their motion. So they may say, I move to grant the variance of whatever it is, based on the fact that the property is in unusual shape, the property has been in existence for a long time, there doesn't seem to be any other way to achieve their goals without granting this variance. So they kind of roll it all in. But I think sometimes articulating that out front makes things more clear. And that's good. It's, I think, good on whether you're going to grant it a variance, or if you're, especially if you're going to deny it, to have that legal foundation on the record very clearly.
Okay, so then, and Ed does that very well. So back to the original question, are we proposing then that we state somewhere that that is what a secretary will do?
You don't have to put it in the bylaws, because it says from time to time where they determined it. We could just put it in the meeting minutes that we agree that the secretary should summarize the findings of fact and enumerate them back to the board. And I guess to support what Jill was saying, when I took some training and we had several serious to the city zoning board executions, there was a large urging by our legal counsel at the time to separate the motion from the findings of fact, because you can finesse the findings of fact without making a judgment statement. So if I come in and say, I approve this motion based upon these findings of fact, and then you don't agree with the findings of fact, then we deny the motion. But did we deny the motion for the right reason? So they said, you know, get your team to agree on what basis points you were making any decision that you were doing. And that's why I've kind of separated it, because it was very hard for me to roll all of that stuff together. But it was easier to say, hey, let's see if we can agree on what we sort of went through in a verbal discussion, and say, whatever basis we have, these are the things that either that support whatever we're going to do.
That's good. I didn't like the sound of zoning board executions, though. That's terrifying.
That comes later.
But what you said, Ed, is that you feel like the way the bylaws are written now, and I quote, shall perform such other duties as the zoning board of appeals may from time to time determine, is a blanket statement that would contain findings of facts.
Sure.
Okay.
And we could put it in our minutes that we decide today that the secretary position should be enumerating the findings of fact back to the board, and we just leave it at that. And if that doesn't work, then we can go back and say, we don't want that to happen. It just didn't work.
Well, I just want to clarify, this is Cindy, that we are not setting up Ed to promote every motion. That is not what he needs to be doing. That's us as a board collectively need to listen to whatever's being proposed, and each of us collectively make a motion, not just Ed every single time. He does a wonderful job. I really love that he does it, but I don't want him to feel that pressure.
Yeah, thank you, Cindy. Well, I would agree. We would want to keep the bylaws a little bit vague in case future, in case a future secretary would not want that role. We could have somebody else on the board do it. But I didn't have any other addition.
I have an idea, because it says from time to time, whatever the board determines. What if we wait until there's a motion to enumerate the findings of fact, and then you just ask the secretary, what did you record? And then we can list that, and then we can go and say, well, does anybody, is this the right stuff? Did we miss something? Did the enumeration state something incorrectly? Is it better stated? And we could do that. But it would be that if Cindy said, I I really have an idea of how I want to propose the motion. I propose that we determine the findings of fact, and then before she finishes her motion, we just, give her the list.
Mhm.
That could work, and that would take it off of the secretary having to motion the findings of fact. It would just be,
Right.
hey, what did you write down?
Mhm. Okay, I think that's a great idea. Anybody?
So the secretary really wouldn't enumerate findings of fact until somebody said, I make a motion that we enumerate findings of fact, and then just have it an open discussion and then go from there. Because that's basically what we've done from before. Even when we made the motion, then we went back in and we scratched around on the items that we thought were correct. I might have wrote down 75 and it was actually 79 or something like that. So
Mhm.
I think it's, yeah. And it can be a rolling job, you don't have to have it for the rest of your life.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay.
Or you can just say when we get started, who's secretary today?
Well, if you're going to elect your officer for the year, then
or for the year, that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be easier if we just did it for the year. So I guess we got two things in front of us right now. That's to approve this. Well, the only amended change then is you were just making that correction, Jill.
right.
So do we need to formally adopt these, or?
I don't think you have to do anything. I think they're your, unless, for clarity's sake, now that I'm saying that, I'm wondering, maybe if we want to just modify the last part about the amendments, where we said, I should have put this in here, that the bylaws may be amended upon the majority of, I feel like we say that. That's, where I'm going with that, but I want better language for it. So or something that sounds better. I think.
Like many of the other things that the boards do, does this get approved by city council?
These are
Could we do it that way?
they're the zoning board of appeals bylaws.
Correct. But just like when we do the ordinance changes or whatever proposals, it all goes back to city council for official adoption. We could do it that way, the bylaws,
Well, the bylaws are consistent with state law, and they're adopted by the board members for the board's operation. So they don't need to be approved. They were reviewed by the city attorney. And then if I can share this with you, I'd like you to look at this. This one. So I think you should be able to see this amendment of bylaws. This is from the Planning Commission. And this is what I would suggest. Obviously, we have to fix the total number of members. And we can do this, I think, is a good practice. Written notice to amend should be filed with the secretary. So this was going to be another job for the secretary of the ZBA. At the meeting preceding the meeting at which the motion to change is to be made, and then that you can amend them by an affirmative vote of the majority of the board. So instead of what you're saying now, that they may not be changed, it essentially is allowing for that to happen. But I think this is more clear.
Since we're so small compared to the planning commission,
Mhm.
I would propose that no changes can be made unless it's a unanimous vote of the board. You know,
Mhm.
because that would be saying, and it says we change it so that we can clarify our procedures. And if all of us agree unanimously that that's what needs to be done to make our procedures better, then it would be unanimous. If we had a disagreement, then it doesn't seem that our procedures are appropriate. We'd have to work to make those procedures so that it would be a unanimous agreement of the board.
Only, I like that. The only thing I would suggest is that that means you have to have a full board to make any changes. And if you were missing one member, you wouldn't be able to make a change if you had 4. So I might suggest affirmative vote of 4 of the 5.
I would agree with the four out of the 5.
Okay.
Because you could always be missing somebody. And
Mhm.
you could end up with several months where you don't have your bylaws updated. I don't know that would happen, but you never know.
So we're doing away with the filibuster on the ZBA, but my question is, we're talking about changing, and I don't want to lose track of a few things. There was an open motion to nominate Ed to be secretary. And then I asked a question and that never got seconded. And then we talked about something that needs to go in the minutes that kind of spells out how we're going to do facts, findings of fact. And now we're talking about Article 11, amendment of bylaws in our current bylaws, which state that we may not change the bylaws. So I think, Ed, you asked about city council. Are we actually able to change
Yes.
the bylaws
Yes.
according to our bylaws right now?
There's 2 things, 2 observations. One, you said you weren't good at Robert's Rules of Order, and I think you just brought everybody back on track to where we're supposed to be with the motion of the secretary. So that was good. And then number 2, for your question about the appeals, yes, you can, or the amendment, yes, you are able to do that, and that is per confirmation by the city attorneys. We discussed this with him several months ago. But what I would suggest is that we do prepare a red line version with that amendment language in there, and then bring that back to you for review for your next meeting. And then we can let you get back to your motion, which was on the table.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Is everybody in agreement with that? We'll just, next time we have a meeting, Jill will bring a red line to us and then we can approve the amended bylaws at that point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So going back to the motion that was on the table, there was a motion to nominate Ed. I will ask one more time if are there any more nominations from the floor for the secretary position? Okay.
This is Cindy. I will second the nomination for Mr. Sanaki as secretary of the ZBA.
Okay. Thank you, Cindy. So that was for the nomination. I think I need a motion to elect him secretary of the ZBA.
Yes, and I'm actually thinking now that we didn't have this as an agenda item. We only had the bylaws as the agenda item.
Okay.
And so I'm wondering if, because it's an election of an officer, that should be on the next agenda. Which seems kind of silly because we're just doing all of this, but I think to be precise, that's probably what we should do.
I think the specter of those zoning board executions hanging over us all here, we better stick to the rules.
So we may
Does
want
it
to
say in our bylaws?
Yes, it says, let's go back to that. Officers of the ZBA shall be elected each year for a one-year term by the ZBA at their first regular meeting held in each calendar year and shall hold office until their successors are elected and assume office.
Okay, so since this isn't the first meeting of the calendar year, we need to.
Right, and we did have it as an agenda item, I believe, at that first meeting.
Okay. All right, well, I guess we'll table that also for the next meeting.
Now, I don't know if we have any other items coming up, but if it would be helpful to do, to take care of some of these administrative items and do a short training, zoning board of appeals training, I'd be happy to do that. That might be helpful for some of our newer members
Okay.
and refresh some of the ones.
Brad and Sam, would that be of interest to you?
Yeah,
Yes.
I would like
Oh, yeah.
that.
Okay. All right, well, that would be great if we could possibly do that in June then.
Yeah.
Okay. I do have one thing before we adjourn. Did you have anything else, Jill?
No, that's up. Thank you.
Okay. I was looking through some old city emails, and Nick, maybe you can help us with this. I saw an email from Michael Smith regarding an ethics document that we were all supposed to fill out. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, all employees and board members were supposed to fill that out. I believe there was a deadline on that, but if you haven't turned it in yet, don't worry about it. I know that some people don't tend to check their email regularly. So if you guys have an opportunity to fill those out, please do. And at the signature line at the end, it asks for a notary. Just disregard that for now. And
Okay.
just submit those whenever you guys can. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Nick. Yeah, I just, I'm guilty of just kind of finding it. So if board members haven't filled theirs out, if they could just go back into their emails and look for that. I got it March 5th. So.
Nick, did those go to our city email or to our personal email? Do you know?
They should have gone to your city email.
Okay.
If not, I can write a note for myself and I can make sure I get you a copy on Monday.
I don't remember seeing that.
Or I'll just resend it to the entire board Monday. That way you guys don't have to go searching for it. I'll do that first thing Monday morning. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Nick. Okay. Is there anything else for today from the city or the planner?
Not for me.
This is Ed. Has the Diversified Credit Union parking lot application for their variance been submitted?
I have not seen it, but
I kind of expected it today based upon how they were trying to move along.
you can look in the folders. No, I don't believe so.
Okay, well, that's supposedly coming to us based upon the Planning Commission's recommendation for a shared parking agreement between the Diversified Credit Union and Gramer Funeral Home that allows for shared parking and a complete revamp of their parking lot layout.
Okay. All right. Well, if there's no other business, I'd make I accept an offer to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Brad. I have a
I
motion.
second.
Thank you, Cindy. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any
I
opposed? Okay, great. Well, have a great evening, everybody.